Newcastle suffered one of their worst losses of the season on Saturday, where they took a 4-0 drubbing against Manchester City. It is a highly unusual loss for them, and that got me wondering, is there a root cause for this loss? In this video, I'll tell you where I think our big loss started and how this breakdown led to poor performances all over the pitch. This is the Newcastle United Digest. Let's go, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome out to the Newcastle United Digest, the channel delivering you tuned content in bite-sized chunks. My name is Adam Snyder, and I'm going to be talking about that 4-0 beating that Newcastle took at Manchester City on Saturday. Over the past few days, I gave myself some time to ponder this, and I had a couple of extra days due to illness, but through all of this, I heard a lot of noise. The noise was a lot of overreaction theater about the sky is falling and we're going to lose the cup final when it's still a few weeks away. Yes, we have some tough matches between now and then. And a lot of people are probably thinking, well, there was that hangover after we made it to the cup final 2 years ago and went into it. The schedule that we have now is a lot tougher than what we had 2 years ago. This is bound to happen with good teams, really good teams, just like we are. But there are some problems that need to be addressed. And I figured that this is a good opportunity to take what I do at work and apply it to this. I have some background in IT systems, and I read a lot of root cause analysis. I thought it was appropriate to take that same mindset and approach this match against Manchester City in the same way. But before I share what I believe is the root cause, there are some congratulations in order for two members of Newcastle squad. On Thursday, Emil Kraft and Martin Dubravka signed contract extensions. Kraft's announcement was very straightforward, where he signed an extension through next season, so it's a one-year deal. Dubravka's, on the other hand, wasn't as straightforward. Just like Anthony Gordon's announcement earlier this season, terms of Dub's deal were not disclosed. This is something that baffled me with Gordon's announcement, especially when they wanted to flaunt just how long-term of a deal it was. I made a video about this shortly after the announcement, and you can watch that video by clicking on the link above or in the description down below. Now let's get back to that root cause analysis. I should have seen this coming from a mile away when I saw the lineups released before the match on Saturday. Newcastle came out with their usual 4-3-3 formation, with Willock filling in for the injured Joelinton in midfield. Man City, however, decided to play a 4-2-3-1. While leaving Haaland alone up top plays to our strengths and leaves him out to dry against our back four, it left a lot of space for the rest of the defending champions to run rampant against us. And that's where I believe our root cause is. Our midfield had a bad day at the office. They had a lot of woes going for them, and they were also outclassed and overrun. Not only were they overrun, but they were outclassed as well. City line up with Nico Gonzalez and Gundogan in defensive midfield, Savinho, Foden, and Marmoush in midfield. The rest of this video will talk about how this neutralized midfield leads to issues elsewhere on the pitch. The first one is midfield woes become defensive woes. That is the first knock-on effect that I saw. When you see the issues unfold in midfield, it's not surprising to see the defense suffer the issues they had. Midfield was unable to win tackles in midfield. They couldn't win second balls. They couldn't win aerial duels. They had no control over the pace of the game. This allowed City to unleash the full weight of their attack, minus the threat from Haaland. Sure, the first goal is purely a defensive error on Trippier's part, but plenty of pressure was mounted on that back four prior to this play. City was able to breeze past their midfield without any issues, forcing our defense to deal with an onslaught they were simply not prepared to handle for sustained periods of time. They just weren't set up for it. It led to poor defensive choices and positioning. I don't want to really call anybody out, but I have to call out Lewis Hall in particular because he looked very silly for most of the first half. Savinho was able to run past him almost on command, and the Brazilian winger took full advantage of this when he blew past Hall and found Marmoush wide open for the hat-trick goal. Even on the defensive side of the ball, the midfield could not make a tackle, nor were they a viable outlet for the back four. On Marmoush's second, they made no effort to challenge the play, and this allowed the back four to get stretched badly. This meant there were wide open passing lanes to find anyone, and Marmoush just so happened to be the right one to score again. I know I went through these a little bit differently than they were scored in, but you got to talk about them in the way that makes sense to me, not necessarily in chronological order. And for me, the next knock-on effect to this is a neutralized midfield equals a neutralized attack. There have been other games this season where if the midfield can't get anything going, the midfield's losing the battle in the middle of the pitch, it leads to issues in the attacking third of the pitch as well. The most obvious evidence of this comes from our transition from defense to offense. For most of the season, our transition game has been one of our greatest offensive assets. When the midfield can quickly take a ball from the back line and create scoring opportunities, the game is as good as ours. When this can't happen, it's very slim pickings for our front three, and the pickings were very slim for our forwards. Newcastle registered just 3 shots all game, and the only shot on goal came from Lewis Miley, a substitute midfielder. Why does this happen? Well, the forwards are forced to retreat too far. I looked at all 3 forwards' heat maps, and they were, quite frankly, appalling. Both wingers spent most of their time somewhere between the center stripe and the top of the 18-yard box on their respective wings. Most of it was closer to the center stripe than the 18-yard box. This means once they got the ball, they were getting quickly clamped down. They weren't able to make any touches. They weren't able to make any passes, and they were getting dispossessed. Between the 2 wingers, Gordon and Murphy were dispossessed a total of 24 times during that match. Much like our back four locked down Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak was also on a very tight leash. He had very little possession of the ball in or around the penalty area, and much like his teammates on the wing, he was forced to take the ball closer to the center stripe. He was also dispossessed 9 times during this match. An out-of-form midfield also means the press is also yielded ineffective. In recent games, the midfield trio and even Fabian Schär have successfully contributed to the press. I don't think this was a strong part of Eddie Howe's game plan, especially when you're facing one of the best sweeper keepers in the world with Ederson. I don't think that's really going to happen. However, there were some opportunities to apply a little bit more pressure on the City back line, but the midfield were just not up to task of providing a second line of pressure. And when you have this and they're not willing to clamp down even on the wings or even close to midfield, then you have some big problems. Okay. I know that this is a downer episode a little bit, and it was a downer to watch, let's all be honest. But if you're liking what you're seeing and you're liking the analysis so far, I promise it does get better. Be sure to like what you're seeing. Be sure to hit that like button. And if you're not a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Last I checked, I think almost 3/4 of you who are watching the videos are not yet subscribers. So if you're liking what you're seeing and you're coming back to watch more videos, hit that subscribe button. And better yet, hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a new video. Now, let's move back to the positivity. When going through a root cause analysis, you have to come up with a potential solution or set of solutions to make sure the issue doesn't happen again. For me, there are 2 possible solutions to this. One of them is change of personnel or change of formation. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's a readily available solution in Newcastle's squad to yield a personnel change that is a more permanent solution. I don't see any issue with Bruno or Tonali's individual performances over the past few weeks. In my opinion, the biggest pain point right now is losing Joe Linton in midfield on the left side. His physical presence and ability to pick out Gordon or Isak with a pass are both sorely missed. Eddie Howe's potential replacements don't necessarily instill a lot of confidence. Right now, you have 3 potential replacements: Sean Longstaff, Lewis Miley, and Joe Willock. Willock had a decent showing in the previous week in the FA Cup against Birmingham City, but that's not really a fair comparison. He had a decent match against a League One side team in the pouring rain. And that performance was used to confirm his starting position against defending Premier League champions. Struggling or not, they can beat anyone on their day, and their day was last Saturday. Next up is Sean Longstaff. Longstaff has shown flashes of brilliance this season, but in a lot of cases, they were in the cups against lower league sides. I've mentioned this a few times, but I think that this has been a season of regression for him. He's had some highs with Newcastle over the past 2 years, but he's also had some pretty steep valleys too. And we saw a lot of those early this season, and that's why he lost his starting position. He had some very uninspired play. There were also times where he's not putting forth maximum effort. Do I think he would have been better or things would have been a little bit different with him in midfield versus Willock? Maybe he could have slowed them down. Maybe he could have actually stuck in a tackle and maybe got a foul and possibly got booked. But overall, I think that would have been a drop in the pan. And I think we would have had a very similar outcome with him there instead of Willock, which means the best option was probably to start Lewis Miley at midfield. The kid's 18 years old. He's not even 19 yet, but he has done nothing but impress in every opportunity he's been given. Whenever he's come on as a sub or when he has started in the cup games, he's shown really good ability to absorb pressure on the ball, show good vision for a pass, and make quality decisions on and off the ball. For me, that means he's the best choice, and his second half performance once again showed that. And Eddie Howe praised him for it in his post-game press conference as well. Granted, the game was done and dusted at this point, but he did give Eddie Howe yet another reason why he should be starting. Hopefully, we'll see the young academy graduate get his first Premier League start in nearly a year next weekend against Nottingham Forest. If not, Lewis has to be asking the question, when is it my time? Especially with Joelinton out. The other option is to change formation, and we've shown that that works as well. Since Joelinton's been out injured, we saw Newcastle switch to a 4-4-2 in recent times to minimize that loss. It was very effective. With this formation, you have more personnel to contend against Man City, and it still allows us to break forward when given the chance. If this was deployed with our current squad, it makes more sense to start Willock and Murphy on the outside, allowing Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak to play together up top. Or, if you want to throw everything at them, put Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak up there and try to get a goal if it's close. As it stands, Murphy likes to drop further back than your typical winger anyway, so I think this role would have suited him perfectly. And if this is something that Eddie Howe is worried about next weekend against Nottingham Forest, play the 4-4-2. Play Willock and Murphy on the wings. Play Bruno and Tonali in the middle. And then have Gordon and Isak up top. And if it's close and you need another goal or need to hold things up and you want to just run the time down, keep Isak on and bring in Callum Wilson. Just as I just mentioned in the root cause analysis, this midfield issue had an adverse effect on the rest of the squad's ratings that I'm going to give them for this game. Starting a goal, we're going to give Marty Dubravka a 6 out of 10. Dubs had a tough day at the office, and it wasn't entirely his fault. There were times where his defense made his life difficult for him, especially in the first 3 goals, and there were other times where he was alert enough to bail them out of some tough situations. However, there were also plenty of times where he was beat on a shot or a cross that required some intervention from his defensive comrades. And speaking of those defensive comrades, they're going to get a 4 out of 10 for this game. The defense looked overrun in the first half, and they did not handle that pressure very well. Trippier tried and failed to put on Bruno's superhero cape, and Lewis Hull also looked woefully out of position on a number of occasions, and that allowed Savinho to blow past him multiple times. I've already discussed a lot of their faults in this game, so I won't beat that dead horse yet again. The lone bright spot on defense was Dan Burns' work rate. He swept from side to side, mopping up a lot of dangerous situations within that penalty area. He also did a wonderful job of keeping Erland Holly mostly quiet on a day that could have been a lot worse if he was allowed opportunities. And midfield, just like defense, is going to share in the misery and get a 4 out of 10. The trio of Bruno, Tonali, and Willock just could not handle that 5-man onslaught that Man City's midfield had. This allowed Man City free reign over our defensive third, poking and prodding for holes in our back line at their leisure. Once again, I have to give a lone bright spot to Lewis Miley's performance. His work rate and vision in the second half were excellent, and with each appearance, he keeps getting better. And whether it's a cup appearance or a substitution, no matter how long he's on the pitch, this young lad is playing like he is fighting like crazy for a starting 11 spot. With Big Joe injured and Little Joe struggling, next weekend at Forest is hopefully his opportunity to do so. And just like defense and midfield, the forwards are also getting a 4 out of 10 for this game. They collectively had 1 shot attempt, and it was a blocked Isak attempt. Anthony Gordon really couldn't do anything on the left side, and Murphy looked kind of hesitant to do anything but pass the ball backward. If you remember watching us in the Mike Ashley years, The way he passed the ball almost looked like he was playing like Jack Colback. That is the furthest thing from a compliment that I could ever give. Set pieces are also going to get a 4 out of 10 for this game. The lads got one attempt off a corner kick, and it was not on goal. And City's fourth goal was also conceded from a corner kick. For those reasons, they can't get more than a 4 out of 10. Substitutions are going to get a 5 out of 10 for this game. I know that Eddie Howe was trying to wake everybody up at halftime. Lewis Miley looked good, and Tino looked a little bit more comfortable than he has in previous appearances. Callum Wilson was equally effective as the starting forwards, which really doesn't say much. And the remaining subs did not do a whole lot to stand out in either direction. Overall, this performance is going to get a 4.5 out of 10. In a Champions League 6-pointer game, the Lags looked a lot like the old Newcastle under Mike Ashley. Instead of climbing to stay in the European football fight, they looked like they were fighting to stay off the bottom of the table. I know. That's a little bit harsh, but the way that they got completely overrun in that first half, it's kind of hard not to think that. And if you remember those years, you would think that we probably were back in that era because it looked pretty abysmal. And that will do it for this episode of the Newcastle United Digest. Thank you so much for watching. My next video will be a reaction to the Nottingham Forest game, and I will also have something very special coming up after the League Cup final. So if you're not yet a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also hit that notification bell so then you get notified whenever you're in the YouTube app that I release a new video so you can watch it right away and you're not searching for it endlessly if you want to come back and watch it. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.